Hello, welcome to Programming Rainbow. In this video, we'll be working on a brand new project. It will be SuperClock, a binary clock written in Lua, and it's going to have lots of different options. You'll be able to change the size of it, you'll be able to change the shape of it, you'll be able to change the style. A simple little project, but it has lots of fun different aspects to it, okay? So let's check it out. So this is the clock right here. It is binary, so the first 8 squares on the far right are seconds. So it's counting up in seconds. The middle 8 is minutes, and the left 8 is the hours. So if we were to look at the minutes, this would be 1 minute plus 2 minutes. This is 3 minutes past the hour. And we have 1, 2, and 4. There's no 8, but there is a 16. So we have 6, 7 plus 16. That would be the 23rd hour and 4 minutes past. So if we look up here, it is 11:04. So that's how awesome my binary skills are. Also, I've added something in here where if you press spacebar, it'll actually say it in the, if you're in a floating Windows manager and you have a tile up here, it'll say SuperClock. And when you press a spacebar, it'll say the time, which for me, it's up here. So it says SuperClock and it says the time for a couple seconds whenever I press the spacebar. So you actually can get the hours, the minutes, and the seconds that way as well. So we can change the shape of this. Let me just make it bigger though. We can make it bigger or smaller. We can double its size basically. And this is the default. And then there is a tall version where the seconds are on the right here, minutes still the same, the hours are on the left. There is a kind of horizontal version where the seconds are on the bottom, the minutes are in the middle, and the hours on the top. And then we have versions with ones and zeros, and the zeros are dim and the ones are brighter. It's the same thing, the same layouts are available. And then we can switch to color mode, and we have all the different layouts in a kind of a rainbow color pattern. Okay, so that's about everything about it. You notice that it's actually changing the shape of the window. It's actually changing the title of the window as well. So there's all kinds of different things happening here, but it is a quite simple, small project, but all these aspects that we're changing add to the complexity a little bit. Okay, so as always, I want to show what it is, and then we're going to break it down and build it from scratch. Before we go too much into this, I kind of want to point out that in my setup for NVChad, if you are using my NVChad setup, we did configure Lua because Lua is the default. You know, for NVChad, you need Lua configured just to configure NVChad. But what it doesn't do is the formatting that we've set up for NVChad doesn't actually go to the project. So let me show you this. So if you see right here where it says SuperClock, we have double quotations here instead of single quotations. If we were to go into, let's see. And it's a hidden file, isn't it? So there we go. Style Lua here. We can see that it's auto preferred double in the quotation style, right? And if we were to change this to single, I'm going to save it. And let's look at some other files real quick before we reopen it. So in here, we see we have double quotations everywhere. So I'm going to restart it real quick, and we're going to see that it should change to single. I don't want to edit these because it'll complain that I need to restart again. So I'm just going to go into the conform one. So we have double quotations on style Lua. Let's do a save, and it's changed to single quotations. Basically what's happening here is if we go onto the left side here and I go Shift H, I can see the hidden file, which is the style Lua toml. This style Lua toml says that this is the kind of formatting style that I want for my Lua project, but it's actually only talking about the NeoVim folder, not any other Lua project I had. So I changed this single to double, or I changed the double to a single. So if I change it back, Right. Well, let's leave it single first. We know that it did change style.lua's double to single quotations. And I'm just going to close this scratch window real quick. And I want to go to my main project and I want to restart it. So if I look into clock, we have double quotations here. So when I run the formatter, I have it still set at single quotation. So it should change it to single, right? But it doesn't. It leaves it as double. That's because those settings that are happening here only apply to this Lua folder here that is for NeoVim. Okay, so this single, when we change single to double here, that only applies to our NeoVim. It doesn't go with any projects that we have. So I'm going to put this back to double, just to put it back to where it was. I'm going to restart it. Okay, so we have style.lua here in single quotations, and now they're back to double. So now we're back where we started. So there's two things that we can do here. In our project, again, on the left side here on NV tree, if I hit Shift H, I can see my hidden file here, right? And basically, we could add this, if we want the same style in our project that is over here, our project here, we could just create this file here. We could just take this style.lua toml and we could copy all that out and we could make a .style.lua toml file here. And that's fine too. That would be one way to do it, and that's probably the preferred way. But for me, I just want all of my projects to do the exact same thing, and I don't want to have to make that hidden style.lua file. So what I'm going to do is hard code it into NVChad so that it just does it for all of my files. Now, understand this will override if you have any .style.lua. Well, let's show it. Let's show it real quick. So I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to yank this, and then I'm going to go over here into my project, and I'm going to say not dot. I'm going to create a new file called .style.lua toml. I believe I spelled that right. Okay, and I think it's hidden, so I'm going to, yeah, there we go. I'm going to paste it in here. I'm going to change this to single. And now if I restart my project here, and I go into, say, clock, the super clock here in the double quotations, if I save it, it switched to single. So that is working. That's our local file here. But if I do not want to use that, if I just want to hard code it into my NeoVim, so every Lua project that I run does that, I'm just going to go into conform, just like I've done other formatters, and we already have style.lua work in here. I'm just going to pass those arguments in as if they were command line arguments. So if we look at this, these arguments here, and I'm going to manage this to get it here. Let me just, it'll make sense in a second here. So this one's the auto double. So if we look at the style.lua, we see we're setting column width, but it has an underscore, and we're setting it to 120. I think I changed that to 80. It's the exact same thing, but we need to add double minus, and then we're going to go column width with a minus, not an underscore. And we don't put in equals. We just have this be a string, and then comma separated, and the value a string. We do that with each of them. No underscores. We just use the minus, and we use double minus in the front. This is command line arguments. And we don't need any equals. We just need two strings, one being the switch that we're setting, the other one being the value. So basically, I've taken everything from here, and I've just put it here, and that's hard coding it. Now, this is going to override every .style.lua toml file at C. So you may not want this behavior, but for me, I don't care. I just want all of my stuff to do the exact same thing. And we see that we are setting the double here. So when I save this, And I have put this in my the nvchad 2.5 repo. So this is already in the repo, but it is commented out again. So it's not changing anybody's setup. So with that in place, I'm going to restart this again. And we can see that my style.lua says single. Yeah. And we've changed the clock. It's a single, but if I save it now, it's going to go to double. It's being overridden by that. So I hope that's enough information about that. I didn't want to get too heavy into the weeds, but that's what I'm doing. Those are two ways that you can set up your style.lua for formatting, because you might want line wrapping at 80. I wanted the line wrapping to happen, basically, and some other things. So let's start building this project. So what I'm going to do is in the left-hand panel here, video 1 is the video we're working on right now. Video 2, video 3, this is going to be all the code that we'll end up with at the end of these videos. At the very top level, I'm just going to delete this. I don't want it. Very top level is actually just video 3. And that's what I just ran earlier when I did the Lua dot. So I'm going to delete all of this stuff. So that's a delete. Okay, so that's all gone now. And I'm going to recreate empty versions of the file. So we can do an A, and we need a conf.lua, I believe, and a main.lua. And I'm also going to do a clock.lua. That's kind of going to be like what we did before, where we made a game.lua. This one's going to be called clock. Okay, so now we have empty project files that don't have anything in them. Let's look at the configuration first. So we're going to set up the normal way that this has been. I've covered this in several videos before, so I'm not going to really cover it now. I'm just going to do it. Just know that if you don't know what I'm doing, go back and watch the beginner's guide to Lua and Love2D, and also the Yellow Snow. And I cover those in quite detail, all of this stuff. But since I've done it so many times already in the videos, and those are older videos, so I'm just going to go ahead and move forward. So making a function, it's going to be love.conf. We're going to pass in t, or not passing it, we have an argument. So t.window. Now we will be, like I said, we will be using the clock.lua to set this, but the end product, this will be more efficient to be here. So we don't get a screen that initially starts out as the wrong size and shrinks down, but in this video, it's not really going to matter so much. So this is the window. This is the window width that we're setting. And I'm going to set it to 280. And again, like, it's not going to be right for this video. We might actually change it, make it right. But we'll change it again in a later video. So our height is going to be 164. It's because if I put it at like 600 by 800 right now, or 800 by 600, it would make that big window and then immediately shrink down to a small window instead of just creating a small window initially. So we're going to set the title. And this is just going to be super clock. And let's do the icon. I do have a little icon file there. And it's in images. And it's just called icon.png. And I'll show it to you real quick. It's here. The only real two files that you need is going to be a true type font. So I have that here. And this is just a window icon. You don't need this. This is not part of anything that gets displayed on the screen. This is part of what the little image in your operating system will display for this when it's running. So you're not really, this isn't required. You can skip this if you don't want to download these files. If you just want to do the code, you don't need that. You do need some type of true type font though, but you can supply your own. Okay, so that is everything that we're going to do in this file. And again, this is wider than it is tall, but initially in this video, we're going to make a tall version because it's going to be easier. But okay, so let's go into the main and we're just going to set up the skeleton. just going to be very basic. It's going to hand everything off to the clock. So we're going to import the clock first. Or require the module. Okay, we don't need the .lua on it. And now I'm going to use the love.load, love.update, love.draw, and love key presses. So I'm keeping all these kind of the ones that do the basic things, I'm keeping them in the main.lua, and the clock stuff will happen in the actual clock module. So function. These are built-in functions to Love, and we're just defining them. They're going to be called automatically. So this one's going to be clock. I'm just passing these off. So love.load is just going to call clock::load because I'm implicitly passing self in. If you don't know this colon right here, it's the same as doing. And on the actual definition of this function, it would be self. It's just to help with object-oriented. So this is the love.update. If it sees love.load, it loads it one time. If it sees love.update, it's going to attempt to run that update 60 times a second. And this will call the clock.update, again, 60 times a second. But we are going to use delta time here. So I'm going to put the DT here and then pass that DT straight in. That will Love automatically calculates delta time for us, and it becomes available if you put the DT here. So I'm just going to take advantage of that because I will be using it. And we got the love.draw. And this is doing the same. Okay. So the last thing I want to do is I want to be able to close this when I press escape. I'm going to actually be doing other key buttons, but the very first one I always set up is just the escape key. And that kind of just gets it set up anyway. So what we're going to be using is love.keyPressed. Key is going to be our argument that we're looking at. Right here. So this is key pressed. And I'm going to say, whoops. I'm going to say if key equals escape, then we're going to just let it shut it down. So we're going to say love event quit. And that will be enough for now. So right now, if I try to run this isn't going to work because I haven't set these up. So let me just comment these out real quick. The calls to clock. And even this one up here, because I just want to run it and make sure that we're kind of working. Everything's working right. I'm going to ignore this warning right now because I just want to run it. I'm just going to run love dot. And that looks exactly like what I wanted to see. And I'm looking up here because that's where my title is. And it says super clock. So that is, everything is working correctly. It's good as you're writing code to kind of check it often. So you know where you've made a mistake. You could have written typos or other things. So I'm going to re-enable this stuff. And this is going to sort of be the, we'll come back and add a little bit to this file, but this is mostly done. Everything really is going to be happening in clock here. So the first thing I want to do is make this clock table, and I'm going to return it. I'm going to give it the capital letter. It's kind of like object oriented or singleton. You know, this is kind of an object I'm working with here. Okay, that will get us part of the way there. We do need to kind of define load, update, and load, update, and draw. So we'll do clock, and it's going to be colon. Update, and we got DT here, and it'll complain we're not using it. It's no big deal. For now, it will make it correct. All right. So it is, I'm spelling things wrong. Okay. I'm going to be getting the time. Okay. I think I have the page opened up. So built into Lua is a way just to get the time. I'm going to use this OS date, and I'm going to use this one here, the string, as the T, the asterisk T string. And this is going to give us a table. And from this, I can pull out the hours, the minutes, and the seconds. So that's how I'm going to get the time. Part of Lua. It's not specifically part of Love. So here I'm going to say local time. And this is going to be os.date. And in here, I'm going to put in the string of asterisk t. And that is what's going to give me that table. Time will be this table. And what I want to do is I want to take this time and I want to turn it into 8 bits. I want to take the time in seconds and I want to turn it into 8 bits, like an 8-bit number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using modulus 2, and I'm going to keep dividing it by 2 and then checking modulus 2 each time for a remainder. Let's kind of write it out and then we'll kind of see what's happening. So I'm going to create local seconds. Okay, and this is going to equal time.sec. So remember this right here created a table that has many different things in it, but the 3 that I want to use is seconds, minutes, and hours. So this time table has a member of this table that is the seconds. So I'm just going to hold it in this variable locally, and then I'm going to be basically manipulating it. Pushed in. This should also be pushed in. So I want a for loop, and it's going to count from 8 to 1. It's going to count backwards. So I'm going to say for I equals 8. So again, I'm going to be counting backwards from 8 down to 1. So I'm going to say for I equals 8, 1. So it's going from 8 to 1. And I need to tell it that it's moving backwards. So I need to give it the step, which is going to be -1. Okay, so now I'm going to, I do need to make up here in the load. I'm going to make a couple tables and I'm just going to fill them with zeros. It's just the easiest, simplest thing to do. I say self dot, we're working with seconds, so I'll say seconds. Self dot seconds. And I'm just going to make this be a table. I'm just going to fill it with 8 zeros. We got here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and let's do 8. Okay, I'm actually going to need an hours and a minutes. So I'm just going to create those as well right now. Okay, so I basically just have some empty tables set up for seconds, minutes, and hours. So as I move through here, move through the loop, I'm going to use I. That I is my index. I'm going to say self.seconds, and it starts with the 8. So that's going to be I, and then we go equals seconds mod 2. And then after that, we're going to divide it for the next one. So we're going to say seconds equals math 4. We can say seconds divided by 2. So we have this for loop that's going from 8 down to 1, and it's filling up the seconds table with whatever this number is. It keeps getting the modulus of it and then dividing by 2 to go to the next iteration, getting the modulus of that, dividing it by 2 to go to the next. And that's going to basically fill out our seconds number and turn it into binary. So we have our table set up, and this is the 1 index and this is the 8 index. So we're going from the 8th one backwards. We're doing 3, right? And so we have this loop. We're going to do it 8 times. So in the very first part of the loop, we're going to deal with the very last number over here. So we do a mod 2 on it, and we get a 1. So that gives us a 1. So we filled up this seconds here with a 1. Okay? And then we divide it by 2 and floor it. And that's going to give us 1 as an answer. So then, and this is our 7th iteration now. We're in our 7th. So we do 1 mod 2, and that's still going to be a 1. So in our 7th spot, we get a 1. Okay. Now we're going to take 1 and we're going to divide it by 2, and we're going to floor it, and that's going to give us 0. So now we have 0, and we get the mod on 0, and this is for our 6th iteration, and it's going to be 0. So now we're at our 6th spot, and it's 0. And it's going to be 0 all the way down to the 1 spot. It's going from right to left. So it starts out on the least significant bit, and it goes to the most significant bit. And that's how this algorithm here is working, or this for loop. Okay? So I'm just setting zeros up so we have a table of the right correct size. And I'm just going to copy this exact same thing, and this is going to look like what minutes and hours is going to look like as well. Okay, so it doesn't really matter what order we do this in. I'll do first one second, and then the next one is minutes. And I think it's just min for the table name. And so the table we're putting in these 8 bits into is going to be minutes. Minutes, and I'm just gonna select this right here and do a search and replace for seconds and minutes. G, there we go. So down here it's going to be hours. So I'm just going to select this right here, and I'm just doing the s /. So what I'm doing here is I'm just selecting it in visual mode. You know, you could go down here and so if I'm in normal mode, I go to visual mode, I hit V, and I select what I want to deal with. And then when I hit colon, it automatically puts the symbols down here. It's saying that the whole thing that I've selected. And I'm going to do a kind of a sed style where I go S and a delimiter, which I'm going to use /. And I want to change all the seconds into hours. So seconds, that's the thing I'm looking for. Then when I hit the /, right now I have nothing, so they disappear. If I type in hours and / and then a G, it's going to change all those seconds to hours in the part that I selected. Okay, so but this right here needs to be hour. Okay, so local hours, yeah, it looks good. So this is filling our seconds, minutes, and hours. We have this delta time. The reason why we have this delta time here is because, do you remember when I was showing the actual time in the title? We could do that as well. But I wanted to only show the time in the title for like 5 seconds. So what I'm going to do up here is I'm going to go into the clock table. I'm just going to set some variables. Yeah, I'm going to set them as variables inside it, but one of them could be I didn't do it in my code, but one of them could be a constant. In Lua, there is no such thing as a constant, so it doesn't really matter. I'm going to use underscores for these because they're meant to be private. Again, in Lua, that's not respected, but it's a convention. So it doesn't mean anything that there's an underscore, but it shows the intent that it's not meant to be. It's meant to be a private variable that's not accessed outside of the clock module, but it's not enforced by Lua. So I'm going to make a timer here, and I'm going to set it to 0. This is just a variable again. And I'm going to make a duration. And this duration, I'm going to set it to 5. I should have put commas. Sorry. And the last one I'm going to do is I have a Boolean, which just says show time, and I want to set it to false. Okay, so we have that. Those are just some variables to make use of. So down here at the bottom of where I was setting up those, how to separate it out, I'm gonna check to see if the Boolean show time has been set. If it's set to true, I'm going to put the time into the title bar. So I'm just going to check the Boolean, and right now it's not set. It's set to false. So we access itself, and I named it underscore show time. Then, so what I'm going to do is, if this is true, I want to only make it be true for 5 seconds. So when this gets toggled on, I want it to stay on for 5 seconds, then turn off. So I'm going to have this timer running inside of here. Every time this if statement is successfully enters, it's going to increase the timer time and then check it to see if it's longer than the duration. So the timer is going to start at 0, the duration's at 5. So when the timer gets up to 5 or it gets more than 5, it's going to turn this off. So I'm going to go self timer equals, and I'm going to say self. This is why we got the delta time. Timer plus delta time. So this is whatever our delta time and the frame time. Each frame, however much frame time is passed, it's going to add it to our timer. So if our game is running at 60 frames a second, this delta time is going to be 1/60th of 1 second. So 60 times it's going to hit, and after 60 times, it's going to have added 1 second to our timer. So what I'm going to do is, after updating the time, or the timer, sorry, I put it time and timer. It's supposed to be timer both times. After I update this, I'm going to check it against the duration. If it's bigger than self.duration, then our timer is up. So if it is up, I want to set the show time to false. So that's basically, if this thing is true, it's going to keep adding time to it and keep checking if the time is bigger than the duration. The duration is what's my maximum time I want this to be on, and then it sets it back to false. Also, what I want to happen is I want it to change the title back. So let's go look at this real quick. I'm going to be changing the title. So if you go to Love love2d.org. Let me just check. Okay, make sure nobody's. If we go over here and I went inside the wiki button right here. If you click on this button right here, it takes you to the Love wiki. And under love.window down here, let's see, I've got it open, one of them. Set mode, set title. So under this set title, we can change the title. Now, we did set the title in conf. Sorry, let me show you the file. We set the title right here. Now, this is initially what it's set to, but we can actually set the title while the game is running, and that's what we're going to do here. We're going to set the title while it's running. So it's very simple. It's just love.window.setTitle and then put the title. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the title up here as a constant. And there is no constants in Lua. Again, this is just convention. I'm going to write it in all caps, and that just shows my intent that this should not be changed. So underscores show my intent that this should only be accessed and changed directly inside of this module. Like inside of main, even though I have access to clock in main, I should not be directly accessing anything with a underscore. That is just convention. That's my intent. And a completely capitalized tells me that anywhere inside of this module, I should not be changing the value of this because I mean it to be set one time. But again, this is convention. This is not enforced in Lua. So I'm just going to do that though, because that's my intent for it to set up something that's not. I don't want the title to be changed. So I'm going to say local title equals, and it's going to be super clock. Okay. And it's just saying that it's not been used, but it's going to be used down here because when this goes to false, I was showing the time in the title, and now I want to not show the time in the title anymore. I just want to show the title of the program, which is super clock. So I'm going to say love.window.set, and it auto completes right here. Set title, and I'm going to say title. That's the title that I set up here. Okay, so all of this is happening to see the timer turned off. So what happens when the timer is still running, when it's turned on? So what should we put then? If this falls through here and it's still, I'm going to put an else on this actually. So if it's still true on this check, that we're still inside of the show time is still true at this point, I'm going to say love.window set title. But I'm going to set it to something else this time. I'm going to make it bigger so I want to put the title in here, just like we did up here, but then I want to add to it. So I'm going to put the title and then I'm going to append to it using double periods. That's the like concatenation. And I'm just going to put a space and I'm going to put that again. And this time I'm going to put the time.hour. So that's from up here when we got time. It already has time.hour. And we used it here, but we held it in a local hour variable that we kept modifying. But the original time.hour is still there. So we're going to use it here. And then I'm going to put a colon. I'm going to put this in a quotation. And time.minute. I think it's just min. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put a colon. And time.sec. I think it's just sec. Yeah, that's the whole thing. So it's going to run the title, which is super clock. And then it's going to give me a space. And I'm going to have the hour, a colon, and then after that, I'm going to have the minute, I have a colon, and then the seconds. Okay, so we still are not. I'm just going to remove this to a period so it stops complaining. Because nothing's happening there yet. Later on, something will happen. The load, it is actually doing something. I just kind of want to see if this if statement is working right now. So we actually need to toggle this on and off. It's off by default because I've set the Boolean up here to off. But if it's on, it's going to be adding to its timer, checking if it's the duration, and then changing the title. And I will notice here that it does say constantly updating the window title can lead to issues in some systems. I'm not sure what those systems are. One's fine on my system. So if you have problems on your system, you might want to skip this step. If your system has issues with this, you might want to just bypass this whole thing that I'm doing here. So I'm going to go into main, and I want to toggle this on with the space key. So I'm going to say if key equals space, then I'm going to call the clock. I'm going to call the method that we're going to put on the clock, I'm going to call it show time. And this is going to be an else if. We're just adding another option to that one that's already existed. And in here, I do need to make this show time. So right above update function, it's going to be clock show time. And I'm using camel case for the method. And what this is going to do is it's going to reset the timer to 0. Each time we hit the space bar, it's going to reset the timer to 0, and it's going to set the show time Boolean to true. So even if it's already true, it's just going to reset it to 0 again and make sure it's true again. So if this is going to show the time for 5 seconds, but imagine if I press space and 1 second in, I got 4 seconds left. I press space again, it's just going to reset me back to having 5 more seconds. Every time I hit the space, it's just going to give me 5 more. Or it's not adding 5, it's just going to be 5 from whenever I press the space. So the timer is going to be set. It's resetting it to 0 basically, and it's just making sure that the show timer Boolean is true. Okay, so we should be able to try this, and the only thing that we're looking for is, for my system, is right up here. I'm going to be looking for it if the time is shown here. On your system, it might be in whatever title screen you have. On Mac OS, I think it does it in another place too. I'm not really sure. Wherever your title part is. Okay, no errors. That's good. Up here, it says super clock, and now if I press the space bar, it errored, so I messed up. So let's look at the error message that I got here. Attempting to compare number with nil. It's in clock 43, so let's go check that out. Right here, I have self time. It should be timer. Yeah, I think I had just a typo there. Let me try it again. Okay, yeah, up here. And it's saying now it's 0012, and that's actually true because it's just past midnight here. It's a couple seconds past midnight, so it's 0 hour, 0 minute, and 19 seconds. So that is working correctly. That means we have time. We have, we hope that we have the breakdown of the time. We haven't seen that yet, but something is going on here in the code. It is working as expected so far. There's probably a really nice way to do this, but basically I make a table of rectangles because we're going to be drawing rectangles. So I make a table of, I call them rects, but they're actually just XY coordinates for where I want the rectangles to start at. And I just brute force it. I'm sure there's a really fancy way of doing this, but this is just a simple project, so I'm just going to brute force it. So up here in load, I'm just going to make another table. And this is going to end up being longer later, which is a little bit annoying again, but again, it's just seemed to be the simplest way to do this. I could have got really fancy with it, but it's just, you'll see what I mean. This is going to keep growing. It's going to end up in another file in another video, but for now it's simple enough. So I'm going to make a table called self underscore h underscore rex. I am calling them rex, but they're not really rex. Originally they were rectangles, but now they're actually just xy coordinates. I don't need the rectangle because all rectangles are the same size in this program, but I'm still calling it that. So I'm going to make some constants up here. So I want to have a little border. I want when I draw the little square rectangles, I want to give them a little bit of a border. So I'm going to give it a 4 pixel border. Or we could do the times 2 where I'll give it an 8 pixel border. We'll make it double size. So I'm going to make a constant up here, and I'm going to call the border, I'm going to call it 8. So we'll say the border's 8, and we also need the size of not the size of the rectangle, but kind of the size of the rectangle plus the size of the border, so that the next rectangle drawn has its own little border. So I'm going to combine the size of what I think of as my digit with the border to call that just size together, so that I always have this kind of border thing happening. Because this border is only happening on one side. Imagine this, like if I have so imagine that these asterisks are my border, and these zeros are my cells that I want to light up at my rectangles that I'm drawing. I don't want the rectangle to take up the whole space because it looks ugly. I want to have it a little space around it, which is represented by these asterisks. So the border here, the 8 border here, represents the asterisks right here, the moving myself in from the left side and down from the top. But now I need a size of this rectangle, but I also need to add the border on again before the next rectangle is drawn. So what I do is I just add the size of my rectangle with the size of the border, and I just add them together, and I just call it size. So this gives me the bottom and the left of my border. And when it cascades, you always have a bottom on the left and bottom on the left because they're always butted up next to the other one that has a bottom on the left. The initial top bottom and right. The initial top and left, I just add one more border to it. This is the way I'm kind of drawing things. So I do have a border, and then I have something called a digit size and then a size. I don't know why I'm here. Okay. So yeah, I'm just going to show it. So I have a local. Let's say digit. I put it above. I want to follow my nodes so my code matches up. So I have the digit. This is the actual size of the rectangle that I'm going to draw, or where the number is going to be inside of it. So I'm going to call this, I want to make it double size so it's easier to see right now. So it should be 36, but I'm going to set it to 72 just to double the size, and the border is already doubled. And then I'm going to make something else called local. And this is going to be the size. So imagine I have my border as the first asterisk and the first asterisk down, the one from the left and the one from the right. Now if I take my actual digit size, which is the 0, and the next asterisk and the asterisk below it, I call this whole thing my size, and I can tile those very easily. So my size is just going to be the digit plus the border. Okay, so that sounds overly complicated. I'll just try to show it instead. Yeah, we're not using size yet. Okay, so down here, basically I want to think about where do I want my first rectangle to be drawn? Well, I want it down the border width and over the left of the border width. So my first rectangle is going to be in the top left-hand corner, right? So I wanted to come down border width, and I wanted to come in from the left border width. So that's where I'm starting my first rectangle. So it's going to look like this. I'm going to put this in a table, and it's just going to be border. So that's where I'm going to start drawing the rectangle. I don't need the width and the height because they're always going to be digit. Digit is always going to be the width and the height. Okay, so that is the first one. So where's the next one going to be drawn? Well, I want it to be drawn below it. So I'm always going to leave, my X is always going to be border, and my Y is going to be going downwards, because I'm going to make a box here, and then below it I'm going to make another box, and then below that I'm going to make another box, and below that I'm going to make another box. So my X is always border width, but my Y is going to be border width, and it's going to keep getting bigger. So here, let's make another table here, and I'm going to say border. But this one now, the Y on this one is going to be size plus border. And the next one is going to be the same. For the X, for the Y, this is going to be size times 2 plus border. Okay, so I'm always doing the plus border, but the size is allowing me to tile this down. So it's going to keep going like this, the 2, 1 here. Let's just grab these 2 here. And put some commas. So we're going to go all the way down till we hit 7. So we have 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so that is going to be, that's again just the X and the Y. Initially it was rectangles, but I don't actually need the whole rectangle. So that's going to be the position for, let's say it's the seconds. It's actually going to be the hours, but just for us to draw something right now and see it happen right now, I prefer the seconds because they change more. Okay, so we have seconds. So how can we draw these? I'm going to go down into draw down here. And this, we're going to clear the screen. And the way that we can do this is just use love.graphics.clear. We can actually clear it to a color if we want by putting a color in, but I'm just going to use clear, and that's going to do it to black. So clear right here. So that's going to clear our screen. And then we're going to start drawing our screen. Now I want to set the color. I'm going to set it just to white. So we've seen this before, so it's going to be love.graphics.setColor. Set color, and this is RGB, and it's between 0 and 1. Yeah. It's 0 to 1. The old one was 0 to 255. The new one is 0 to 1. I will show you later in this video how to use these old numbers because we will be doing it both ways. But for right now, I just want it to be white, so I'm going to do 111, and that's going to give me white. This for simplicity, so we can get something on the screen. But I will show you how to use the old 0 to 255 numbers later. So what we're going to do here is we're going to run through our loop again. It's going to be going from 1 to 8. And this is going to be going forward this time. So we're going to say I equals 1 and 8. So it's going from 1 to 8. We'll say do. And what I want to happen is I want to know if there is a 0 or 1 in the spot that I'm looking at. So I'm going to remember we were talking about when we, on the update, when we do this on the update, it's actually filling in ones or zeros all the way up into here. So assuming that this is now populated with ones and zeros, we can just go down through it, starting with the first one, the next one. And every time we get a 1, we're going to draw a square. And when we get a 0, we're just going to skip it. So everything that's a 1, we're drawing a square. So we're going to use this 1 to 8, this index right here, the I. So I'm going to say if self, we're going to use the seconds. Seconds. And we're going to index it with I. We're going to say if that equals 1, then, and we'll say love. Now this is how we're drawing the rectangle. We have seen how to draw a rectangle before, so I'm not, it is on this page here. I don't have it pulled up right now, I don't think. Graphics print. But yeah, I do. It's right here. So love.graphics.rectangle, and the mode, we're going to be using fill. It's just a string. You put a string right here. We're going to be doing it like this. So love graphics rectangle, we're going to say it's a filled rectangle. It's going to be using the color that we set. We set the color to white already. And this is the X, the Y, the width, and the height. So we're going to get our X and a Y from our table above, and our width and our height are always just going to be digit. The constant that's digit, which is 72, is going to be our width and our height. So up here, digit 72 is always going to be our width and our height for all of these. This table right here is going to be where all these rectangles are drawn. This is the X and Y for each of them. And the width and the height is always going to be 72. So we have this self, so we're going through our seconds. And like I said, we're going to be using love.graphics.rectangle. Okay, and we are going to be using fill. And now we are going to be getting the index from our self underscore s underscore rex. So our second rex. Underscore s underscore rex. And we're going to index that with I. And now there's two things in here. If we look up here, if we index it, that's another table that has 2 items. So to get the X and the Y, I'm just going to say 1 or 2 for the X and the Y. So the first thing we need is the X. So that's going to be 1. And then the next one, we're just going to do it again. Self.srex. And it's going to be I still, but this time it's going to be 2, and that's going to give us our other value. Now we have our width and our height, which is always going to be digit and digit. Define self. Up here we changed this to dot earlier, so it stopped complaining. Now we can use the colon. Okay, and that how it just modified it, that's because of what I've set here. This 80 line column, that's what's going on there. Okay, so what's happening here is we're clearing the screen. We're setting our color that we're going to use to white, and that is the color that's going to be used for this fill. So we're going to be filling white rectangles. So we should get our seconds being drawn. Okay, and it might look funny. I'm aware because we're not displaying it correctly. I just want to see something working on the screen right now. Hopefully not a blue screen. Okay, that is good. Now the thing is we're drawing up and down right now, and we have the window being incorrectly created. So that's actually fine. I kind of wish there was something showing up on the screen, but let's fix the screen. So just like how we can set our title, down here, we can set the title with love window set title. We can also set the width and the height of the window with love window set mode. So if we go to window set mode right here, this is love.window.set mode. They're just capturing the state if it was successful or not. I don't care about that. We have width, height, and flags. Now, I'm not going to set any flags, so I'm just going to be using the width and the height. So we're just going to use this right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of manually set it here. So I'm going to say love dot. This is going to be modified later. Window set mode. And we kind of have to figure out what it is. So what do we want it to be? So what is the width of this? Well, the width of this is going to be the border plus the size, right? That's our x. Our x is border plus, because it's border and then digit and border. That's our whole width. But size is border and digit already, so we can just say border plus size. So border plus size, that's our x. Now, what about our height? Well, we have 8 tall here, and then we have the border. So it's going to be border plus size times 8. Yeah. I wrote it in a different order. I put size times 8 plus border. I'm just gonna fix it so it's on track with what my notes are. It doesn't matter though. Either way, it's fine because the order operations it'll still work correctly. Size times 8 plus border. So I know we are only drawing one thing right now. Later on, this is going to be wider, but let's just see it drawing something. Okay. This looks like it's working. The seconds. This is just the seconds. And that should clear. Yep, there it goes. And it's going to start building again. So this is all correct. This needs to be 3 times wider, actually. But we'll get to that. So I actually want to have a separation between the... So we do have this little border separation, but I want a bigger separation between the hours, the minutes, and the seconds. So I'm going to add another up here called separator. And it's going to be 36. It's going to be half of the digit. Okay. So I'll call this separator, and we'll say it's 36. Okay. So what I want to do is I need this, when we're setting the screen, I need this much wider, actually, because I need it the size of 3 of these, plus the border, plus 2 separators. So I'm going to say this times 3. And then I'm going to say plus separator. That's times 2. Okay, that looks like it's probably correct. Okay, so now we have the problem is our seconds are on the far left, not the far right. But I just wanted something to be shown. So basically, we need to make more of these tables, and this should actually be the hour table, not the seconds table, right? So the hour table should be there, and for the minute table, it's going to be the same. So I'm going to yank this, I'm going to bring it down here, and this is going to be minutes now. But our minutes are all moved over on the X. They're going to be moved over by border plus size 2 plus a separator. So I'm going to try to be fancy here, and I'm going to try to use this string right here that's including the comma, since that's unique, and I'm going to rewrite it. So I'm going to select it, and I'm going to do S, and I'm going to say border, comma, that seems like it's unique. And then I'm going to change it to what I want it to be, which is going to be size plus border plus separator and then a comma and a G. Hopefully that's all correct. I think that's correct. So that's our hours, our minutes. So we got to do this again for seconds. I'm going to yank that again. And this one we needed, we need the size. We need, so the reason why this is here is because we're one size over. We're a border over and a whole square over plus our separator. So this time we're going to have two separators and two sizes. So I'm just going to do the same thing again. I'm going to try to be fancy. Size plus 4 plus separator. Okay. I'm going to try to write that whole thing again and just fix it. Size times 2 plus border plus separator times 2, and we'll put the G in there. Okay, so now this is our seconds. Okay, so we have the three kind of X and Y coordinates for all the squares that we need drawn on our screen, but down here we only have one of these set up. So we basically need this multiple times as hours, minutes, and seconds. Okay, so the first one here, let's make it hours. Seconds. Okay, and we will need to change, I think, one of these now. Self hours. Yeah, okay. So this one here, the seconds should be minutes. So just in one spot. Oh, I'm trying to be fancy, and it's only in one spot anyway. So I didn't. Oh, okay. So the other thing that I need to change is for hours, this needs to be the H. And for minutes, this is M. Let's make sure that they're unique up here. Hours, minutes, seconds. Okay, so now we should have them all being shown. Okay. And the hour is still the 0 hour. And let's see, this is saying we have 3 minutes past, and this is 8 and 16. So that is 24 plus 3, 27 past. 28 past. I can't. Well, the minute switched over. Yeah, still correct. So in my, I actually have this in a slightly different spot in my notes, but it doesn't really matter. So that's just getting the basic clock up and running. I made it double size. And let's close this, close this. So all these numbers here are doubled, so it's easier for us to look at, but it's fully functioning right now. It doesn't have any numbers, any color going on. That will be in the next video, but it's completely working. So basically, this is all the rectangle positions for the hours, all the rectangle, the X and Y positions. Originally, they did have the full rectangle, but there's no reason to. It's easier to do it the other way. For the minutes, this one's for the seconds. This is just the turn so that we can have the 8-bit representation of our seconds, minutes, and hours that is updated in update. And this is setting the screen size. When I set the window mode, it's based on this layout that we've just set up here. We're making sure that our window is big enough to show it. This is just the toggle for toggling on the show time. In updates, we are getting the actual system time, and then we're taking the seconds, the minutes, and the hours, and we're using this for loop that counts backwards to fill in these numbers by getting the modulus and then just dividing it and getting the floor of that, and then the modulus of the next one, going all the way down until it gets to 1 for the last time. This one right here is updating our title. If the show title boolean is on, it is giving us our title and the time in the title, but it's also adding to the timer each time around. So when it goes over 5 seconds, which is the duration time, then it turns itself automatically off. So it's just going to show the time for 5 seconds. When it does turn itself off, it just sets the title back to the original title. And again, if you have problems with this on your system, because Lua says it, I'm not sure what kind of system you're running. Could be Windows or Mac or whatever. If you do have a problem, just don't use this part then. Like you can just not add this part in. And our draw thing is very simple. We're just clearing the screen. We're setting a color, and then we're going through our we're going through our hour table, and we're indexing it and using the recs with the index, and the 1 and the 2 is the X and the Y for each. This is the width and the height, and that's just digit size, which is 72 for these. And we're doing the same thing for minute and hour. Okay, so that's going to be it for this one. I hope that was educational or interesting for anybody that's been dying to learn how to make a binary clock. In the next one, we'll be adding different things. We'll be adding, I think, color and the numbers to it. So thanks for watching, and bye.